Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Now today we're going to revisit an old favourite. So I think one of our first big videos on the channel was to do with a Sudoku variant called Between 1 and 9 Sudoku. And that over time has become known as Sandwich Sudoku, which of course is the title of our first app. A very popular Sudoku variant and, just a lovely, lovely puzzle. Now I've been recommended that I take a look at this puzzle today, which is exactly the same type of puzzle, except instead of being between the numbers 1 and 9, it's a between 4 and 6 Sudoku. And this appears on the Logic Masters Germany website, which is a wonderful, wonderful site. I mean, the German puzzle scene is absolutely buzzing. And it's by somebody called gjchangmu. Now, I don't know who that is. If you do know, or maybe it's you, then do tell us. Because, the email that I had suggested this is a very fine puzzle and that gjchangmu has been putting a lot of fine puzzles up over the last few weeks. So let's remind ourselves, how does Between 4 and 6 Sudoku work? What do these numbers outside the grid mean? Well, they give the sum of the cells sandwiched between the 4 and the 6 in the respective rows and columns. And this is going to play with my head, I can see that, because I do so many Between 1 and 9 Sudokus that I've got very used to all of the totals and all of the logic that can flow from those totals. But obviously here, all of those sort of neural pathways that I've built are going to be somewhat redundant. So here's the puzzle in our software. If you'd like to have a go, just click on the link under the video and that'll take you to a web page that should look very, very similar to this one, and you can play along. Now, let's go. Right, okay, so the first thing I think it must be, yes, okay, the first thing I can see is that the numbers 4 and 6 add up to the same number as 1 and 9 add to, i.e. 10. Now that means this 35 clue is very helpful, because I know this row altogether will sum up to 45, because it will have to contain the numbers from 1 to 9. Therefore, if I've got a 4 and a 6 outside the sum, forming the bread in the sandwich, if you like, I will have to put the 4 and the 6 at the very extremities of the row in order to create enough room for 35 to sit in the middle. So this must be true. Now, what I will do, as always, with any sandwich Sudoku of any complexity, you should certainly label the cells that cannot contain a 4 and a 6 in this instance. It's so important to get into this habit. It's the best tip I can give you for solving this Sudoku variant. So if we look at the 26 clue down this column, well, 26 I suppose it could include a 9 now, so it could be 4 cells. It could be 9, 8, 7 and 2. That would be the minimum number of cells. So all of those squares must be green. And then what's down here in terms of what's the furthest away we could put this? We need to leave enough room for cells to add up to 26 plus 10 is 36. 45 minus 36 is 9. So what's the maximum number of cells I could make? What's the minimum number of cells I could make? 9 would be a single digit, so that must be green. So the 4 or the 6 lies in one of those squares. Let's do the same on that side. 12 must be at least 2 cells. 1 must be green. 4 here. Okay, well the 7 is a little bit interesting. 7 can't be 3 cells, because that would require us to use the 4 twice. It would have to be 1, 2 and 4. So 7 is either 1 cell or 2 cells, but it can't be more than that, which means that this square must be green. And in the column we've got 8. So, oh, 8 could be 3 cells, because that could be 1, 2 and 5. 1, 2, 5. Then that would be the 6. But this is the furthest away the 6 could be, so all of those squares are green. And what now? Yes. Yeah, okay, let's... That square's got to be green as well. But let's have a look at these 4 cells. Because we've labelled these other cells in this block as green cells, I know that there must be a 4 and a 6 in these 4 cells. Now, we can see from the column and the row totals that the 4 and the 6 cannot be orthogonally arranged. It's not possible for them to be in a single horizontal row or a single vertical column, because that will break one of these clues. So we know they're arranged diagonally. They're either like this or they're like this. So one of these 2 squares must be a 4 or a 6, and one of these 2 squares must be a 4 or a 6. Yes, okay, and now let's think further about this, because if we know that there is a 4 or a 6 in one of these 2 squares, what's the furthest away the other 4 or 6 could be, given that the clue is 3 and there's a 1 down here, so the 3 must be a single digit. So the furthest away would be, this is a 4, 6, that's a 3, and then this is the furthest cell away from these cells that there could be, you know, the 4 or the 6. So one of those 2 squares must be 4 or 6, and all of those squares are green, and exactly the same logic applies with the 2. So the 2 can only be a single digit, so one of these 2 squares must be a 4 or 6. All of those squares are green. And now look in the bottom box, we've only got one more candidate square for the 6. It has to be here. Oh, that's going to be hugely helpful, because we've got this 1 clue now, and the 1 can't come left. So this must be 1, that must be 4. All of the rest of this row must be green. Oh yeah, 6 is an interesting total actually, isn't it? Because that means that this can never be a single digit. We can never have a 6 here, because then there would have to be another 6, and we get a repeated 6 in the column. So a 6 clue in this variation is always 2 digit. Oh no, it could be 3 digits. It could be 1, 2 or 3. Ah! Okay, well it must be 2 digits. So let's put those squares must be in. This could be a 6. This could be a 6. This cannot be a 6. Right. Okay. What now? Well, this 12 clue, that's going to be helpful, because it's not going to be possible for either of these to be a 4 or a 6, because there won't be enough squares outside the sandwich to add up to 23. Because we know 12 plus 4 plus 6 is 22, 45 minus 22 is 23, so we're going to have to fit cells summing 23 outside the sandwich. 23 must be at least 3 digits, so those 2 are green, therefore that's a 6. So the 25 sum here must be at least 4 digits, so that must be green. So one of those 2 squares is in. Label that using my patented colour technique. And in this column we've got 18 here, 1, so there must be at least 2 more digits there. Now this is quite interesting as well. We've got a 14 sum in this row. So we know that there must be 1, 4 or 6 in these yellow squares. It's absolutely forced. If there isn't, the implication of that would be that both of these two squares would have to be a 4 and a 6, and that would break column 9. So there must be exactly one in these squares. Therefore, there is exactly one in those two squares. Oh, and that fixes it, doesn't it? Because now this 2 clue is forced. This square cannot be a 4 or a 6, because otherwise we'd have to go 2 and then a 4 or 6 here, and we know this square cannot be a 4 and a 6 because we've already labelled it green. So this is a 2. No, what on earth? This is a 4 or a 6. Apologies. Come on. Why won't it let me change that colour? Therefore this square is green. Now, this 6, look, I was about to get worried about that, but I can make 6 3 digits here. So these squares must in fact be 1, 2 and 3. This square therefore must be a 4 or a 6. And therefore this square must be green, because I knew exactly one of these two squares was a 4 or a 6. Therefore these squares are all green now. This square must be a 4 or a 6. And therefore this is a 3, this is a 4 or a 6. And we're starting to make a little bit of progress. Now we know the 4s and the 6s in these squares are on the diagonal, so that one is a 4 or a 6. And needs to be white, and that one must be green. This must be a 2 because of the total. These two squares are green because I know one of these two squares is in. That fixes these squares. Look, that's got to be a 2. This has got to be a 4 or a 6. This has got to be a 4 or a 6. Now in this column, this square can't be in now because we've already got our 4s and 6s sorted out. So this is a 4 or a 6. And that 6 is going to help with that. So let's put that in. That's a 4. That must be a 6 because we need a second one in this block. Therefore that's a 4, that's a 6. Oh, and we're going to go right round the grid now. Look. That's all good stuff. Now this 16 total requires at least 2 cells in the sandwich, so we can colour those in. That must be a 4. This must be 7 and 9, therefore. Again, I keep having these mental panics where I think, no, that's not possible, because 16 in a standard sandwich Sudoku requires 3 cells because you can't use the 9 in the sandwich, whereas here you can. Okay. Panic over. So these two squares are green. 10 must be at least 2 cells. So this is green and this is a 6. Therefore this is a 7. And this is a 6 as well. And this is a green square. So there we go. I think I'm right in saying we've got a 4 and a 6 in every 3x3 box. And this is always the first stage in a sandwich Sudoku, is to get this sorted out. So we've done that. Now we've got a 6 total in this column, look. Oh, and that's resolved because we can't put a 3 here because that would require another 3. We can't put a 2 here because that will require a 4. So this square is a 1. That's a 5. Therefore that's a 3 and that's a 2. That's got to be an 8 because that's just given. And so we've done these 3 totals. We've done this total. We haven't done this one yet, or this one. Or this. Oh, now this 1 and 8, look. 1 and 8 here in a 25 total. These 2 squares have got to be 7 and 9. That gives us 7, 9 pair in this column. And this square must, this square is fixed because it's part of an 11 sum. So I can't put 7 in this cell because that will require me to put 4 above it. So this is 9, this is 7, this is 9, this is 7, this is 2. Oh, that's 2 is really nice, because these 2's now interact. They force a 2 into one of those squares. Now, why is that really nice? Because that is part of a 26 sandwich. So 4 cells, if one of them's a 2, the other 3 have to be 7, 8, and 9. So 7, 8, and 9. Those ones can't be 7 actually. So they're 2, 8. Yeah, these are 2, 8, and 9. And these 2's here. So this is 7, 8, and 9. Therefore, these 3 must be 1, 3, and 5. I think that. And there's 2 1's there. So that's a 1. These 2 squares must be 7 and 8. Okay. So we've used this one. We've used this one. 7 total here. We can't use. Yeah, we can't use 1 6. We can't use 3 4. So this must be 2 5, which must be like that. These 2 squares must be 3 and 9. There's a 3 there, so that's a 3, and that's a 9. These 2 squares now must be 1 and 8. I don't think I can resolve that. Maybe I can, but I'm not seeing immediately how to. 6, 4, 5. Okay, so we've used this one, we've used this one, we've used this one. We haven't... These 2 squares have to sum up to 12, look. Without using 4 and 8. And this 3 is interesting in that context, because this 3, there has to be a 3 in one of those 2 squares. Therefore, there has to be a 3 in one of these 2 squares. So now, these 2 squares which need to sum up to 12 can't include 3, 9. So they must be 5 and 7, and we can resolve it. That's that way round. Therefore, that's a 5 by normal Sudoku. So, oh no, I just wanted to put a 5 into one of those 2 squares and one of those 2 squares. We know one of these 2 squares is a 7, and it can't be this one, so it must be that one. This must also be a 7. Again, that's just basic Sudoku rules. It's a nice puzzle, isn't it? It really is. It's, as I say, it's weird the way it's playing with my brain, but I think that's probably good for me. Right, what next? We've done the 14, we've done the 10, we've done the 16. That one's just not very helpful. Done this one. This 18 sum, maybe that's a place we could look. Oh, actually no, 5s. 5's here and here. So there must be a 5 in one of those 2 squares. And that means that's not a 5, that's a 5. And that's going to actually help with the 18 sum. So now, 5, 7, 2 and 1, that sums to 15. I need an 18, so that's the 3. These 2 squares must be 8 and 9. And that's, look, they've got a 9, 8 there and a 9, 8 there. So therefore, these 2 squares must be 8 and 9. That resolves that this is a 7 and this is an 8. And this must be a 3, just to complete the row. One of those 2 squares must be a 3. Now, let's just have a think. Yes, this is nice. This 12 is now resolvable. Because if I put an 8 in here, I need these 2 squares to be 1 and 3. And look, there's already a 3 somewhere else. So this is not 8, this is 9. This is 8. Oops. This is 1, 2. Therefore, this must be 5, 7, which is resolvable. It should be a 2 there, I think. That's 5 and that's 3 now. This is 8. Neither of these squares is therefore 8, and that's now resolvable because of the 9 in this square. This 2 resolves the 2 and the 1 on this side. That resolves this 2. And hopefully we're closing in on a solution. You see one of these squares needs to be 1, 3 there. Therefore these two squares need to be 9 and 5, which is resolvable again. 9, 5 like that. Therefore this should be an 8, 1, 9, 1. So 1 in one of those two squares. Have we used up... Oh, we haven't done this sum, look. So this sum is 22, and at the moment we've got 19, so this is a 3. That's a 1, therefore that's a 1. One of these two squares has got to be a 3. That's not a 1 anymore. We need an 8 in one of those squares. There's an 8 here. Ah, that's helpful. Therefore this is the 5. And this must be an 8. Just to complete the column, that's an 8, that's a 3, therefore that's a 3. This must be 7 and 9, which is resolvable now. 7, 9, 8, 8, 9, check. Yay, there we go. So that's how to do the puzzle. Very nice indeed, gjchangmu. I very much enjoyed it. Thank you for the recommendation. Hope you guys did too. Let me know what you thought of the puzzle in the comments, please. We really value the feedback, even if it's bad, but I'm sure in this case it won't be. Actually, I must label that cell green, otherwise that's going to annoy me. Right, thanks very much for watching. Back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.